What was the transition between being on the tools and then getting off the tools? How did you manage that transition? Because I think that's a hard one for most trades business owners.
Yeah, definitely. So it was kind of like I suppose it was a kind of partial transition. Like I started just doing a couple hours instead of just going from working in the evenings. It was going to work a couple hours less in the day, you know, and go and do paperwork. And then from there, it just became more and more. And it was at a point where you just couldn't do both, and we couldn't go and see enough jobs and get enough work in. So it was kind of like, right, I'm just going to go off the tools. Yeah. But it was really tricky, especially because you're trying to manage people when you're not there. And, you know, at the time, we maybe didn't have the same quality of staff as we've got now, you know. So, yeah, it was hard.
And
it was really hard.
You've got the operations manager there now, so.
Now we've got Owen, yeah. So that was another kind of transition, was going from me looking after the individual teams to then him stepping on. And again, that was tricky.
It all kind of pushes itself into it a wee bit the way. It's like, I think we had a chat kind of earlier saying that, like, it's almost like the bit highlights itself and you're like, right, I'm a really hard-working person and I'm putting so much hours into this and I can't make that bit work now, so this must mean that I need to give that off to somebody else and then start doing this other bit, and then almost that bit then grows, and before you know it, the sales is massive. And like for us now, we've got like 2 surveyors that goes out and estimates the jobs, but now we're at the point where we're like, we actually need a third to keep up with the demand, and it's like, it just, now it's the department, so I just grow as well, so
it's bit by bit.
Aye, so
exactly.
It's just a total, it's just a knock-on effect. It's almost a never-ending journey, but it's good.
I think I mentioned as well, that's what we were hoping. Well, I've got a job description and stuff I've put together, and we've just started advertising for it, but that is hopefully our next move, is getting someone on board to do our estimating and designs and stuff like that, which would be brilliant.
Definitely. It's just frees up so much of your time, and like if you're anything like me, you'd probably like going out and seeing the customer and like interacting with them and speaking and talking about the company and the vision, like what they can have and probably like what your company can deliver. But then it does get a bit deflating, I would say, as a business owner, when you then need to go back to an office and sit down and kind of type it all up and put it all together. And if you're doing designs and all that as well, it's like quite time consuming. And that's probably what I did, was like I probably first of all handed over the mundane stuff. So we had like our office manager at the time just doing drafts for like the quotes and typing up the templates and stuff. So when I came back, like half of the work was already done. I just had to like actually put a good bit of thought into what it was for the specific job and then do some estimating, and then we almost just made the small steps like that, and slowly but surely I kind of came out of the sales of the business. So
right, okay, yeah,
that's probably.
Aye. So I'd say that's where we're at. Is I've got like a, you know, for all our costs, and I've got a spreadsheet where I essentially just, you know, fire all the quantities in and the labour estimates. But even then, it is still essentially like admin. Yeah, I don't mind going out and meeting customers and things like that. That's great. But yeah, it's just like,
I always found that fun bit, but then it was like, because you just end up talking away and you get on with people and you're having good conversations, and then you just kind of get back to the office and you're like, oh no, this is this bit again. But that's probably why I sort of left it, to be honest, because I knew we weren't going to be able to serve enough people if I continued to do that, because there was only so much of that kind of admin that I could get through. And it probably took for me to actually step out of that department for a wee while and allow sales, between sales and operations, they put together a new material ordering process. So they kind of came up with that themselves, and I didn't take anything to do with it, because I'm actually quite bad for like processes and stuff. Although I massively believe in them, systems and processes, I think is what's needed for any business to succeed. But I'm also like quite bad at like avoiding them. Yeah. So it's almost like I know that I'm like, I think that's one of the things that like I know I'm not the guy to implement the systems and processes and make sure that they're ran, and that's why I've probably got such a big team actually looking after each wee bit, because if I just like sometimes like even recently it's like maybe there's been a a roofing appointment that's came up and somebody's wanting a new roof, but they can only do a Saturday appointment and none of the team are available that day. And I'm like, look, I'll go and do it. And it's like the teams are like, no, because like I'll go and do it, and then I'll come back and it's like I've got it all written on the back of the paperwork and all that. And it's like we're going back like 10 years here. What have you done? And I'm like, what? You use spreadsheets and that now, and it's the full process is. I'm then tied to that as well. So now, like having projected forward a few years and being out of the sort of day-to-day sales and the day-to-day operations, now looking back, I can see why it was taking me so long to get out, because I was basically doing things in a manner that nobody else could pick it up.
Yeah.
So if you can do it in a manner that they actually like, look, this is the process, and job descriptions and probably checklists and all the wee bits, then if you can do that and go, look, just follow that, and that's how that worked. But I suppose it's getting it out of our head first.
Yeah. Well, that's gonna be a challenge, is actually working out how do you pass this over to someone else and make sure it goes as smoothly as possible.
It's the fear as well, I suppose, because I was probably a bit scared, thinking, well, what if our sales like just run it?
Yeah.
Because like I always knew like it was on me. I was like, right, I'll just do everywhere under the sun to make sure we've got work ahead of us. But if it was like when you put it into the hands of somebody else, it can be quite scary.
And did you find that? Did you like? Was there any kind of lapse in conversions or anything?
There has been a bit where it's just like, whereas like everything was just gone amazing, and then we just hit wee dips, and we're probably quite a seasonal business, but it can be. It's not almost like, right now that it's winter, it's going to be really busy or quiet. It's actually like so much more like up and down, if that makes sense. So
you're the opposite from us then. When it's raining, it's quiet, and when it's sunny, it's busy.
So there's two sides to it. Obviously, from a inquiry point of view, like for leads coming in, if it's wet and wild, that's great for us. The phones rings off the hook. Our marketing's pretty good, to be honest. That like we can rely on our phone ringing quite a lot, especially when it's wet. But when it's the flip side to that is the operation slows down, because the guys can't get on the same. They maybe can't open up a roof as quickly or open it up as much as they would want. Sometimes they can't even open it up. So there's an element of that. But then it just kind of like averages itself out later on in the year. Like, you get like weeks of sunshine where the guys are like getting on really, really good and the production's all high. But then there's like the surveyors are kind of almost like, well, what are we doing now then? And they just sort of usually use that time to like refine the processes. So we figure out how the surveyors are getting the job from the job accepting over to like the operations team that's going to do it, and we always try to make that loop like better and better and better. So when the guys are on site, they've got the proper like scaffolding in the right place, the materials are there at the right times, the skips coming on and off site at the right times, they're prepared with everything, and that's just a constant evolvement of work, that one.
And what is your process for that kind of handover? Because that's an issue that we have, is 99% of the time it's fine, but it's like that slight miscommunication between myself handing it over to Owen, and then
I ran away at that point and they fixed that. But nah, to be honest, like kind of did a wee bit, but we have a weekly meeting where the surveyors will go over the job with the operations team to say, look, this is. Well, it's actually the operations team goes to the surveyors and says, look, these are the jobs we're looking to book in. Is there any sort of things that we need to really know about? I suppose a lot of it's down on paperwork now, but we just always learn. Like we've basically got a bit of a feedback mechanism, whereas the general manager will pick up on any problems that come through the business, and when we identify the problem, we then take it back to the source. And if that's been an issue with the survey, like they've maybe not put enough days on the job for the guys, or maybe it's operations that they've not ordered stuff, it's not almost like that was your fault. It's like, how can we all fix that and make it a wee bit better? But we always try and take it back to the start, because the surveyor probably holds most of the keys, if that makes sense. They can basically, if they get the survey right, then it unlocks a lot of the rest of the doors. But if you've started off with a poor survey, then it's quite hard. And I suppose that's where, as your volume rises and you've got two surveyors out there full time and you're maybe kind of pushing on needing a third, they're probably going through a lot of that volume and they're maybe not quite getting the time for the survey. So that's probably why we're trying to like invest in bringing a third one in, so they can do maybe less surveys but higher quality and then deliver it over. But we find that it's quite good, but we still get loads of problems. I think that's just trades. There's so many uncontrollables where like we've got a good relationship with like our skip companies and our scaffolding companies, and we've got like processes that we've got in place there that lets them know what's coming up when and stuff. It's all well communicated, but there is always just a bit of like that you can't control. If a skip driver's all fill one day and your skip's not gone in that morning and the guys are waiting on it, and there's just so many different things, like materials turning up late and different things. So every time something like that happens, we try and bring it back into our control. Right. So like having the like the warehouse, like we've got stock of the stuff that the guys will always need on day one of the job. So like we always send them, we're like, look, you'll be able to get all your work done this day. But if the materials don't show up on that day, like from the bigger stuff's maybe coming from the supplier, like if that didn't show to the next again day, which is rare, but if it did happen, the guys aren't interrupted.
They're not just standing about waiting.
So and just trying to get away from things like the guys being on site and then being like, oh, we need this, like, and just them getting sent to merchants and stuff. We try and limit all of that and have the organisation right at the back end so that like we've got stock of the stuff and everything's kind of there and organised for them, and just allow them to be roofers as such and just get the job done. Always a constant, like it's constantly evolving though.
It's hard, isn't it?
Oh, very hard. There's always something else, and every time you think, just when I get to there, this will be it and we'll be fine, and then you just need to adapt again. Do you know the amount of people that probably thought they were comfortable and their business was fine, and then like something like COVID comes along and hits it, just you've got to adapt. There's no other way. So that's kind of.
And for your estimating, how do you find, like, for what you estimate for labour, if you've got, let's say, 20 hours in a job, are you at a point where that's like pretty much 100% accurate, or is there still like a bit of, because that's always an issue we've got, is it's generally pretty good, but it's maybe like 85-90%, and sometimes it's a bit under and a bit over, and it's hard to get it spot on.
I think the key is in the word estimate. Like it is always an estimate, and I suppose like what we do, we always give quotes. So we didn't like to give somebody an estimate that is actually this could change as such. So it is always a fixed quote, but on our behalf it's still an estimate, because our surveyor could be saying, right, I'm going to put that job in there for like 2 men, it's going to take them 3 days. And then the first day they get there, like there could be a hiccup, something could go wrong, the weather could affect them. Like if that takes 3.5 days, then there's no really a great deal we can do about that other than just have that feedback mechanism. And then at that point pick that up, and then we go back through it, which is quite difficult to do. It's quite hard to find the time to do that, because you're always focusing on the future. But if you don't do that, then you'll just keep bringing in more work, but actually maybe losing money at it. But we usually get, it's all about that feedback loop. So it's saying, right, well, that job there was in for 3 days. It's actually took us like 5. That would be quite bad, really bad. So we'd be like, right, surely the guys haven't messed about for 2 days. And surely we weren't that off with materials. Like usually if it's getting to that stage, like there's probably been quite a big error on the surveying kind of department. And we've had some big howlers, to be honest. And it's something that it's a risk you've got to take.
So you do like a kind of post-mortem on the job and work out what's gone wrong.
Yep,
that's a good idea.
And it's the only way, because what we found was we were hearing moans and groans about people saying, oh, that job wasn't in long enough for us. Like maybe the guys saying like that should have been in for 2 days and we were expected to do that in a day. But it was just like they just moaned between themselves a bit. So we kind of tried to bring that into the culture, like at the team meetings, to say, look, there's 2 guys in there who was on the tools before, done all the stuff that yous have done. Things change as it's moving on. They're maybe getting like they're maybe like you probably. I would always say you get a bit quicker when you come off the tools. Your estimates probably become you think you could do more in a shorter space of time. But if you're on the tools, you're actually like, no, this actually takes a bit longer. But so like we've tried to bring that real human element back into it, to say that's your teammates in there that you're slating and arguing with. Why don't we just educate each other and just say, look, it takes us longer because X, Y, and Z. If we could get a half day on that job, that would actually make it a lot better. And then it then gives the surveyors the sort of the ability and the like to be comfortable to say to the customer, look, nah, I know you might get a cheaper quote, but like we know this inside out. We've got a feedback loop. In order for us to do the right job, us to make money at it, give back into our community, pay our guys right, all of these good things that we're trying to do as a business, then this is what we need to charge, but everything will be right for you as well. And it's almost like win, 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 we always say. I know a lot of people talk about win-win, but we always say like win, win, win. So it's like the customer has to win, the company has to win, and the team, the guys out there doing the job, the employees, they need to win as well. But like if it's going to be like totally opposite, like the guys were already struggling on the job, so like you're really thinking, right, the guys aren't going to win out of this, we need to think differently. Then it's like win-win between us and the customer. Like can we go to the customer and say, look, this is something that's really rare, it doesn't come up very often, we want to speak to you about it, like would we be able to add a wee bit onto the cost here, because like we've done X, Y and Z, and but we're not going to be, we're like really going to be at a big loss here. And then other times if we think we're totally responsible, like we'll just take the hit for it as a company, and that means that the other two have still won, and we've probably won because we've learned a lesson and we're moving on. So it's almost a framework to just go, like you didn't ever want to be like, oh that's amazing, like we priced that, like sometimes even if we'd priced a job say for like 5 days and we'd done it in 3, we'd always try and get a wee bit more value to that customer. We'd maybe say, look, we'll get you on one of our monthly maintenance programs for aftercare, or we'll do this, or do you know, you always like, nobody wants to win too much, because it shouldn't be about luck. The aim of the game should be that we get as close as we can every time to getting it perfect, so that everybody is win. But I think, like, does that make sense? Like, you didn't want to be like, oh yes, like we done great out of that, but the guys were quite annoyed by the job because it was really hard for them, and the customers paid way too much, and then really the company's like, oh well.
Because the other side of that is if you're having jobs that are overpriced by luck, you're having jobs that are underpriced by luck, you know, so you're going to be losing.
Purpose. And that's the feedback mechanism every time. That really is the...
If everyone's just the same
that is the bit.
time.
And it's getting the time to do that, or just actually setting it in stone to say, if we didn't do that, then we're not really going to move forward. So I like that thinking. That's good, And it's just trying to get all the different departments to speak to each other as well. Because like sometimes when the surveyors are like sort of like really busy, they're maybe struggling a wee bit with like their follow-up calls and stuff, so they might need to speak to like the admin team to say, could you just pick up some of these calls and just see how the customers are getting on with their quotes and stuff like that. And like sometimes it's a grey area, is that actually their job or no, but it's just all communicating and saying, look, can you help us with this? And we try to do that so that the team kind of blend and mould together in their roles, and it's no almost like just because it's separate departments that it's they can't cross over into other areas.
Right. Okay. Yeah.
Makes sense.
Good. Yeah. Very good. No, that's interesting. Sounds like you've got a really good setup.
It's a work in progress all the time. It is. It's like, if you asked me like 5 years ago, like if I would get to this, what would we? Like I would probably, that'd be amazing. That'd be the pinnacle. But when you get to here, you're almost like, you just always see the extra bit of potential that's still there that you're not quite hitting, and you just try and make it better and better. But I think our goal is ultimately to systemise the business. Like that's our main goal, because then we can decide to branch out into other areas like easily, continue to keep growing it. Like you can't grow something that's not actually built on a foundation of systemisation really, because if it's just going to be like you said, like pricing that job by chance, like you won on that one by chance, but you maybe priced that one and you lost on it. So try to take luck out of it and almost just get consistent with it. And that's a challenge in itself. Getting I don't know if you do any of this now, but getting your team to actually follow checklists.
Not particularly.
It's quite hard. Like everybody's like, no, I can already do my job. But trying to get them to follow checklists is probably, you need to then sell to them the bigger picture of why you're trying to systemise the business. And I said to them, like, well, if something happens to like me or Kelly, my wife, like, then like we want this business still to run. And use all be in jobs. So like if we can use checklists, that's going to help us get to that point. Because you know what it's like, there's probably a checklist for everything, but we always, as business owners, usually keep it in our heads.
Yeah, definitely. Well, that's I think where we want to be in a couple of years, you know. But it is hard trying to get all the process and systems. It's
good to see the journey that you're on, and like you're already starting moving quite quick. That's the big thing. Like I found that like in the early days, it's like sometimes you can just spend too long just spinning the plates, but when you start realising, right, you're going to need a bit of help in pulling these people in, then it's like it never, I wouldn't say it ever really gets any easier. It's just like your days filled with different like tasks really. Like it's probably just as difficult to actually check in on like general manager and the sales team and all the different teams and keep them right and aligned with everything. It's probably just as hard and like probably mentally difficult to do that as it is to just like sit on a roof and just slate away all day. Ken, it's like it's probably hard on your it's probably the difference between physical and mental, really.
Yeah.
But it's still like I think a big thing that happens is because we usually start with our backs to the wall, then we sometimes probably get in our own way a wee bit. Like for me, for example, like things was getting a bit easier there, a bit more comfortable. So like I've like starting podcasts and that, it's like that just seems crazy because like on certain days when like the business is really, really difficult, I'm like, I can't believe like I'm going to be doing a podcast tomorrow when I've got all this stuff going on. But then the reality is you're like, but it's not like that every day. So you can't build it around thinking every day will be the same. Like sometimes you can just go for weeks on end where you're like, I've not even had to go near that place. That's amazing. And it just really, it's just having the set things in place. And one of my biggest sort of challenges and the goals that I've tried to set for the business is like not so much like the tangible things like the targets and the numbers, but the actual untangible side that's like the culture, how everybody's getting on, how everybody's communicating, how the vision's been explained. Like I think that's one of the hardest bits to keep in place. So we're kind of almost trying to build like KPIs around that. Right. So like, and it's probably just like it's just probably like making sure that the monthly meetings are always done.
Right.
And we always, because like we went through spells where like when me and Kelly were kind of stepping out of the business a bit, like we would just find that like they just never done the monthly team meeting. So there was just no employee of the month that month. You're like, that's not acceptable.
Yeah.
Like, but then we're like, right, well, we'll need to set rules. It's like no matter what, no matter how busy you are and what's going on, like that just needs set. And it is difficult because the guys usually come back off the site quite early on that once a month. And it's usually a Thursday. It's the last Thursday of the month. So it's like they're probably getting to the point of the week where they're trying to finish all the jobs off and all of that. And then we're like, just come back and get pizzas and stuff. So it puts a lot of strain probably on like the office teams who's trying to schedule all the work in and make sure everything's done and finished. But I think if you didn't do that, then it ends up being, if you wait 6 months to do something like that, then you're picking all the pieces up. If you do it monthly and you have the appraisals, we were doing them quarterly. I think we're probably going to go to 6 monthly because we felt like quarterly was just a bit too much. But like just wee things like that, just setting them in stone and just sticking to it probably makes a big difference.
That's something I've struggled with is like I've said I'm doing these things and started doing them, and then I'm like, oh, I've not done that for weeks, or I've not done that appraisal, or I've just put it off because there's always so much other things to do. So that's something I want to do more of. Is
it's sticking it. See as well. Like see when you like if something comes into your mind and you're like, I really need to have like a wee one-to-one chat with that person in the business. Yeah. Like that's the time to do it. Aye. See when it gets to like 2-3 weeks later and you're like, oh, I still meant to have that chat. That's usually the point there, like I'm handing my notice in. Right. And you're like, what do you mean you're handing your notice in? I was just going to have a big chat with you and tell you were going to get like you're doing really well, and they're like, oh well, like I've handed my notice in, like I'm moving now. And it's like I'm not saying that that's a real life example, but it's just a scenario where it might not be them as thingy as that, but it might just be like, look, I'm really not happy or whatever, and it's like timing is everything with that. Yeah. And I think that's where like if you set the almost like the year out and say, right, we'll have the monthly team meetings and we'll have the one-to-ones every so often. There will be ones that needs to be reactive, but the ones I think are like important, that because you know when somebody's not right, Yeah. You kind of know, like you can maybe see in their demeanour or they're maybe acting in a certain way, and 9 times out of 10 you just pull them in for a chat and you're just their counsellor for 5-10 minutes, and then it's like all of a sudden their performance goes up, they feel a lot better, a lot lighter. I think it's just identifying that, and that's the bit like probably that I'm trying to get in through my senior team so that happens when I'm not there and in the business, because that was probably one of my biggest strengths. Although I wasn't following processes and systems, a really good people person, so I could see like identify moods and behaviours of people and be like, they definitely need a chat, and then I'd get them in and they'd feel comfortable to speak, and just things like that. So I think that's would be a hard bit to emulate. When usually you probably think, oh, nobody will be able to ever like do a roof like me, or nobody will ever be able to do this, and then you find like actually they usually can. So it's just getting the right people, I guess, in place who thrive off of that stuff as well. Aye, yeah.
And do you think you'll ever fully step away from the business?
I think so. I think that's probably the goal, if I'm honest. But
the Caribbean pina coladas.
Nah, it wouldn't ever be that. It wouldn't. It would be. I think a big part of me is like, but to me, you start something as there no meant to be an end. Like, is there no meant to be a, right, I've achieved that? And it's like, that might be like selling the business or doing a management buyout or whatever it might be. And to me, that's almost like completing it. But on the other hand, it could just be like, there is no end. It's just a continual, I suppose what I would like to do is, I'd like to make sure that my kids have got a choice. So like I didn't want the business to be what it was like for me in the early days, like a bit of a kind of burden on you at times and really hard. So if they were going to step into it, it would need to be fully systemised, that they weren't coming in to run the day-to-day stuff. And I just think I'd just rather, like, if we were to sell the business or the business ran without us, then they could by all means be directors, but go and do what they really want to do. And hopefully we'll be in a position where we can allow them the opportunities to do that, where it's like, look, they probably wouldn't need to work if they didn't want to, but they will because they've been raised with the right values, and then they'll then know that they've got choice and they can just go and. I always think, like, us as business owners, I'm always thinking about what would I be doing if I wasn't doing the stuff that I need to do. And it's almost like that North Star, like going through all these levels of like business and different things. And then it's like, what's that thing you would really want to do if you didn't need to work? And like, that's what I hope my kids do. Like, that's what I really hope. Like, I hope that my legacy ends up meaning that they can just do the thing that they didn't see as a job. And they probably, like, and get paid for it though. But no, I think it's difficult. It's trying to get this kind of balance between, because there's a guilt for me, like, no being in the business day to day, but then there's also something that says people's own like 50 grand, 30 odd grand, but like to do it. It's not like, do you know? So it's like they're there to do it. So what if I just to go in and do it as well, just because may as well just do something. And I suppose that's where like the podcasts came from, and sort of like coaching and mentoring other business owners and stuff is like, that fills my time so that I can be like, look, I enjoy this, it's productive. It probably ties in quite relatively close to Taylor Roos. It's not like a million miles away from it. It's all like, it's a trades podcast that ties in with the business and predominantly probably trades business owners that I work with. So that's probably, I've probably tried to keep it quite close to home for that reason, so that I'm like, I didn't want to be like away down this other like rabbit hole of like learning a full new thing that's nothing to do with Taylor Roos, because that is my priority, and I almost see it as that need, like that's the foundation of everything that I ever want to do will probably come for that. So but I think probably didn't see it as work. Like I've now so like a couple of the senior members of the team, like I'm going to coach them and give them coaching sessions that's kind of almost separate for Taylor Roofs. It's like, look, this is one-to-one personal coaching, as if you're a business owner. So you'll come into me with like whatever it is, but you'll like say whatever you want. Like if it's something that Taylor Roofs you off, then let me know and I'll try. I'm only going to listen and try and pull the answer out that you've already got, and just try and really get the best out of them, to be honest. And I think that's probably like one of the big things, is starting quite close to home. Does that make sense? Like, rather than try to maybe go and fix loads of other people's businesses, then like maybe actually start within my own and helping my own team and stuff. So looking quite forward to that as well. Just maybe like showing them things that like what yous have probably done as well, like Wheels of Life and 90-day plans and all that different stuff. Like, just think, why should they not get the opportunity? Like, because technically the roles that they're kind of in, although it's no business owner, it's no far off. They're still having the same problems with like not really sure on how to delegate and like, you know, like time management and all that stuff that we've all struggled with. So hopefully that'll help. And I'm just trying to see it as a sense from, I think when we were speaking to Archie this morning, like that's what I was saying. It was like, it's probably a Richard Branson quote. It's like, build them up to be as best as they can, but not build them up to be good enough to leave, but treat them well enough that they'll stay. And the ideal is probably that you would keep on to all your staff. But like I think if you've built them up the right way and they did go out and do their own thing, then at least if they're out there doing it right, and they're actually probably like even doing similar to what we're doing, like offering apprenticeships, giving back into the community, building good cultures, making it a good place to work, all of that great stuff, then you're not going to be that. You're going to be quite happy about that at least there's somebody else out doing that now, and they're going to be happier.
Probably still work with them in some way, you know.
Aye, definitely. It's when you see, it's like if you're like got somebody working on your house, and they turn up and the van's all sign written. The guys are all like wearing the same kind of branded uniforms. They all look quite happy. They all look like they know what they're doing. They're all like communicating with you, introducing themselves, keeping the place tidy. Like, people know that doesn't come by chance. They just see that company is really switched on. And then the beginning stage is probably the survey. So if you're bringing people in, like, which you're hopefully going to go in and do soon, as like estimators, surveyors, if they're going out and it's a branded van, branded uniform, we've got the wee survey packs there that we've started giving to the client with a wee like personalised business card with it. So the guy that's there, his face is on the card and all that, and it's just like a wee, like when they're reading through it later, they'll be like, oh, that was that guy, he was really nice and helpful. Do you know, so it's like, it's almost given like as much as you can possibly give to them to show them what that's going to be like if we do get the opportunity to be on site. And then when we're on site, it's just explaining to the staff, the team, that like we need to then keep that up. And again, it's just like if somebody was working on my house and scaffolding had went up and there's like a nice big banner up that's really crisp and it's like really well done, then you'd be like, they're probably doing a good job up there. But like, we've had it as well, and this is stuff that it's always will be a work in progress. But I went by some of my sites and like you see the banner and it's kind of fell down because of the wind or something. It's a wee bit dirty. It's been in the back of the van, and you're like, nah, that's not acceptable. So we're big on that. It's like just don't even put it up if you're going to do that. But obviously, once the site's audited, like we'll see it's not up, and then you'll get given one anyway. But you know, it's wee things like that, and it's teaching the team that's what's keeping them in a job. The small things, by putting the banner up, keeping the garden tidy, just checking in with the customer before they leave at the end of the night to say, look, everything's fine, like we've done X, Y and Z today. Everything, for us, everything's wind and watertight. For yourselves, it might be, look, everything's where it needs to be, it's all fine for the evening. And then like the customer just feels valued. Just like, well, I'm paying for a service and I'm getting it. And I don't think it's hard. I don't think it's overly hard. I think it's just in the basics extremely well. So see that, right? So there's that, but then there's 2 flyers that goes in there as well. One is what's called, it's a flyer which says the tailor-made experience, and it's got like a wheel that basically says, phone up, book in, get a survey. Surveyor will come out and do this. You'll get a detailed quote, and it takes you through all the steps, and it's almost like, and it's just saying to them, this is a tailor-made experience. And the other ones are monthly maintenance plan. And then what we do is we've got like wee Taylor Roofs air fresheners. They smell amazing, like honestly amazing.
Yeah.
And we put one of them in it, and it's just like, the first day we used it, Stuart, who's actually like just came off the tools maybe 6 months ago, so he's quite new to the surveying and estimating, and he, like Craig, our other surveyor, he was off on holiday, so Stuart took them out. The first day he went to 5 jobs and he got them all on the same day. It was all small jobs, and it was all maybe like 500-600 quids and bits and bobs here and there, but it was all kind of smaller stuff. But we were like, well, that must work. So like, if we like, say for example, like that comes in and sits there. So I've like, you know, it's like I've had somebody out today and doing a quote, and then the wife comes in and sits down and we're sitting having dinner or whatever, and she's like, oh, that was that company left that today, and then she picks that up and she goes, all right, and then, oh, is that the guy that was out in that? All right, aye. And then it's almost like, who else was it? I don't know. There was this guy. He kind of had like just a white van, and then there was another guy that like I didn't really catch their name.
He texted me.
He texts me the quote or whatever. Then they're like, but them, well.
That's a great point, because that's what I think that's a reason why, you know, some jobs we don't get is you meet the husband or wife, you sell them, they like you, they like that. The quote comes in, it's more expensive, but then you've not met their partner, and they might be the decision maker. It's another $5,000. We're not doing it, or whatever.
See as well. See something I used to do, right? Like we've been really careful in what we've done, because like we're quite good at sales. Obviously, you didn't sell kind of upwards of 2 million a year and nobody, or prior to that we were always about 1 million. So we kind of looked at it and we're like, we were good at it. But what we'll never be is like, we didn't close somebody on the spot, like on the day. Like we wouldn't be like, look, sign this now. But what I used to do is like, I used to go out and I would, if I knew, like sometimes you do know and sometimes you didn't, but I'd maybe be like this roof's going to be about like 8 or 9 grand. So like if they'd said like, you got a rough cost or whatever, I'd be like, it'd probably be about 9 grand, but I'd already sold them all the benefits of using Taylor Roofs and all the points, and then I used to just say to them, why don't I get the quote prepared and I'll bring it back out to you and I'll sit with you and your husband, or if it was a husband, like you and your wife, and I'll go over it all, every bit in detail. Make sure if you've got any questions to ask, you can ask them. I'll give everything there and then I'll just leave it with you at that. I'll not be looking for you to sign anything. We didn't do anything like that. And they're like, if they say aye to that, I believe that's the deal getting done, because they're saying aye to that and shake your hand. And that's the deal done, and then you just go back as a formality and go like, right, here's the quote and that sort of stuff, and what tiles do you want to pick and all of that, and it's just, you're kind of doing it without actually getting them to sign anything.
Right, okay.
And I just think that's so much better, whereas you've got the ones who's the sales companies that sit in the house for 4 hours and just they can't leave till they get the signature.
Yeah.
And if we done that, we'd be double the size if we did close on the day, because I'm capable of doing that, but I didn't feel like that's
Pretty
morally
brutal,
right. I don't think it's morally right. It's just my opinion. It's not to say I'm right, but to me, I just think I like to, like, a massive one. A massive one is, see, like old people, I always try and get like the son or the daughter or whoever's maybe looking after them, or like their next of kin, to get in touch with them. I'm like, can we show them the quote and make sure that they're all right with it? Because like that's not getting a sale when you're like selling to an old woman who would probably buy off the chap at the door and take like 15 grand off them, and you're getting 10, and that's probably quite good for you. It's like, that's not a win. That's not that win-win-win, you know. That's actually like, you didn't want to be that. So quite big on that. Like, and we've done a couple of ones like that, where like the one particular one, like the old woman was on her own. She'd already been like kind of ripped off by cowboys. They'd came and done the roof, but done it totally wrong. And it was almost like I was like, we can't even reuse the stuff, because it just isn't. This isn't going to be right. It's going to need totally redone. But her only like next family, they were like over in Ireland, so like I'd kind of spoke to them on the phone and said, look, they were coming over to visit somebody else anyway. I said, come over. They came down to our office at the weekend. I just went in and opened up just for them, and we went in and we sat down and I explained it all to them. They seen the place, they seen like how we operate and all of that, and they built that bit of trust, because I think they were really scared to get done again. And then they went with that, and I just think for them, like, they just leave a big massive like 5-star review at the end, because they're like as company owners, we didn't need to do that. Yeah. But it's an opportunity to set yourself apart. And I just think sometimes, even if I think, because I get this kind of feeling as well, like if it is an older person or somebody who you could deem as a wee bit vulnerable in any way, like with no disrespect, if they're maybe like thinking, like if you think, oh, like that's easy, like I've just easily got that job, it's like something maybe not quite right. So I always just cross-reference it, cross-check it and be like, you sure? Like, is there anybody like you need to speak to about this or anything? Because like what I didn't want us ever been on a job that we shouldn't be on because we just kind of pushed them into it.
Yeah.
I think you want to be on jobs that you know the people's absolutely 100%, like they wanted you to do it.
Aye.
So I think there's probably a lot of parts to that as well.
Yeah.
That helps. The other
Keep your reputation.
The other thing, see, like when you were talking about, like, see these packs, like what I found was, so, like, you'll have done a bit of work on maybe disc profiling.
Aye. Yeah. I did one for myself.
Aye. So, like, see, like, if you disc profile people, like, if you've got a D, for example, like somebody who's quite direct, like Craig, our kind of head surveyor, if he goes out and tries to tell a high D about like the company values, the culture, like the team away days we do, and all of this great stuff, like he's getting told to it's like, but when can you do it? Like, I'm not interested in do you know what I mean? And it's very like, oh my god, right, sorry mate. Do you know? But Craig's job is to present the company to this guy. So like, it was him who came up with this actually. Right. So he was like, if you give me something that's going to tell them everything about the company that I can't tell them, I'll tell them as much as I can, but I'm not going to ram it down their throat. And he's like, if I can leave it with them, then they'll read that at night, because they'll probably settle down and they'll be like, they'll probably just be scanning through it, trying to like just get an answer on something. But
yeah, it's a good point, because sometimes you go into a job and you hardly get a word in edgeways, you know, and it's like you've not been able to talk about your knowledge and what you can do. See when you get the estimators in and get them up and running, and you ask them questions, like Craig's told me so many things. Like he said things like, how do you think the customer feels when we turn up? How many tradesmen have they had to the house to quote? Like, how do you know what they're feeling? Like, they might be really nervous. Oh, that's somebody at the door, do you know, like, try to tidy things up and, like, worried and flustered and, like, I wonder, I don't know what to say the wrong thing, what if I look stupid in front of this guy? Yeah. And it's like, nobody's given that some thought, whereas Craig's like, first things first, like, let's calm them down. We're the experts. We're here to empower you with the knowledge to know what you're talking about, because you shouldn't know everything about your roof, but we're going to make sure by the time we've left here today, you will know everything you need to know to make the right decision. Hopefully it's us. But if it's no, hopefully it's just somebody who's got to do the job right.
and then that's it. All the barriers are then broken because they're like, I can trust this person. And we're not doing that with an agenda. We're like, if we do that, we probably will get the job. We probably will. But like, you're also just doing it because if you can add value, then the chances are you should be we always believe we should be getting it. We do, because we put so much actually into the systems, the processes, like everything that we do is built around making sure that customer journey is right. So we didn't want them to go with somebody else because we feel like they'll always get a wee bit of lesser service. In our opinion, we're obviously slightly biased, but...
And see, well, just out of curiosity, do you know roughly how much more expensive like you guys are than competitors who don't offer quite the same? Because you know, there's always going to be, I've always been thinking, there is a point, you know, there is a point where, you know, no matter how good you are, there's going to be a point where you lose people, you know, and it's always been something conscious, like that we need to be, if we're a bit more expensive, fine, but when are we too expensive?
It depends. See, the hard thing for us, is like, we're quite a commercial outfit doing domestic work. Yeah. Like, if you look at our setup and the way that like our business is built, it's like you'd expect us to be like doing £10 million contracts probably, because we're like the way that we're set up, but we're actually set up for the homeowner. So it's like they are probably getting like there's nobody to compare against. Like there's nobody probably, certainly in West Lothian, there's no another business that's running like our business is running. So there's no comparison. There's nobody else with like a couple of surveyors, general managers, like things like that. It's no, so like we've kind of almost like tried to carve our own bit of the market and be like, look, this is what we are, this is what we do. You can't really benchmark that against anybody else. But sometimes I used to empower the customer to say you'll probably get 3 types of businesses. You'll get like the one-man band guy kind of on his own. You'll get sort of like the guy that's got like maybe a couple of squads, and then you'll get us, which is just an out-and-out like company. It's an actual company you're getting into daily. Like if me and my wife Kelly, we're both directors. Like if we're off, the business will run the same way. Like at WoW, like I'm not saying like we could go away for like 6 months and it would just be totally like fine and running, but to an extent, like everybody knows their bit within the company. There's all the problems have all now been happened, and we've put the processes and the systems in place to make sure that that's ironed out. So that's what you're getting. Whereas if you go with somebody who's one of the first two, then the problem is that if something happens to them, like the first one's a really obvious one. If he's maybe doing the roof and tumbles off the roof and breaks his legs or something, like you're not getting your roof done. Yeah. Like that's quite a brutal example, but it's true. And then the second one is like, if that person's like sort of almost spinning that many different plates and got that much going on, like how are they recruiting well? Yeah. Like what's their recruitment process? So who are they putting on your job that you can trust to do the job right? Do you know? So like when you probably get to our level, it is probably more expensive. It obviously is, but like we're bringing in people that hopefully, like, you know, you bring them in, you check that they understand our values. Like when you're interviewing them right from the beginning, you're saying like, this is our values, this is what we believe in for our customers. You kind of share that win-win-win stuff with them, like all the different parts, and then like you make quite a judgment call, I guess, and you cross-reference it with the rest of the team. They're involved in the recruiting as well, and they're like, no, this person's a good fit, and then you get them in, and then it's like, so you're not just throwing anybody on people's properties. Yeah. Do you know, you're actually getting people in that you can trust. And then I suppose from that aspect, if we ever get it wrong and there's somebody that's like maybe wasn't the greatest fit, we've got supervisors and that as well. So you can't really lose with that. Nobody will ever be disappointed with your service, I don't think.
And do you quote against still one-man bands or the smaller? Is that usually who the other quotes are from? Probably
9 times out of 10, because the only other company as such I would say was like another one local, and they do all just commercial work predominantly.
Yeah.
So like that was probably the only one I would say, like if you get 3 quotes, our 2 would probably have been similar. Yeah. And then like the other one would just be probably ridiculously cheap. There's one going about now that's is half the price of us. Right. And they've got their sell into, which is like, so we're on the West Lothian Council Trusted Trader scheme. But there's a trustatrader.com. It's a bit of
it's a con.
It's a bit of a rip-off, and it's their SEO is jumping in front of West Lothian. But there's companies on that to me they wouldn't be on the West Lothian Council Trusted Trader.
The vetting for Trusted Trader is like nothing.
And it's
pay for it, right?
It's just aye. That's it. that was another idea Craig brought to me. Like, he was off on holiday there for a week, and he came in on Monday and he says, "What to show you this?" I came in, what is it, right? Roofers Trusted Trader West Lothian or something like that, typed it in, up the top, Trusted Trader, went into it, went in, he was like, "We're not even on this." And I was like, "Aye, but that's all." He was like, "Aye, but the customers don't know that." He was like, "And they're all getting done by it." So he was like, and then now we're in a position where we're like, "Are we going to need to play this game? Like, are we going to need to be on trustthetrader.com, even though we don't believe in it, but just to actually make sure that, well, the reason we're on here is to eliminate the other people, but we might bring credibility to that if we go in there." And people might like go on that. Because see what you'll usually find, right? I've seen like roofers come down into our industrial estate and just park outside and like look at our signs and see like what accreditations we've got. Because they're not thinking like what resonates with us, what should we do. They're just like, what's Taylor Roof's got? And they'll just be like, right, West Lothian Trusted Trader, Master FMB, Edinburgh Trusted Trader, NFRC. Like, they probably just go and try and apply it to all of them because they're like, well, they've got it, so that must be the ones to have. They're not putting the thought in to be like, where should we be on? So if I was to put Trusted Trader in there, then I might bring credibility, and I don't think it really holds credibility, because then that's taken away from what the Edinburgh Trusted Trader and the West Lothian Council Trusted Traders doing. And what they're big on as well is like, it's more or less illegal to chap doors. So, like, and a lot of these other companies, they're like chapping doors and getting sales there and then. It's mental. Like, we've got one now that phoned us like 2 weeks ago, I think it was. They'd spent $9,000 up front in cash, like, on the day. And this is just to get the roof cleaned. And then it was like they'd been there a week. So they're obviously just up there like hanging about, just like, we've been paid $9,000, we better hang about for a wee while. and then they phoned us and they were like, "Look, I'm getting really concerned here." So Demi took the call and was listening, and she said, "What's your concerns?" "Well, firstly, they've took $9,000 up front, and they've been here a week, and they don't know when they're going to finish, and they don't know how much it's going to cost at the end." We were like, "Just phone the police. Like, phone the police right now. Phone the West Lothian Council Trusted Trader. The Trading Standards is tied in with that." We were like, phone them now, because if we come out, like, they'll probably just hammer us or something. Do you know what I mean? It's like, the reality is, if we come out and tried to say something, there's nothing we can do. So they're just probably going to come down and start a fight or something, which we don't want to get involved in any of that. Probably need to take you with us or something. Well, it was him. Who's telling you to get down? But no, do you know what I mean? So there's just a whole world of things going on there that nobody is really thinking about, to be honest. That's just wee snippets of bits that it's like, how does that even come into the conversation that you're like, right, we might need to go and trust a trader? Do you know? It's just, that's the things you're faced with every week, because like, there is obviously an element of leads we're losing because they're gone there and they're not getting onto our platforms because of whatever reason. And that's what Craig said as well. Like, we've probably got one of the higher budgets, I would say, probably in West Lothian, maybe even Central Scotland, for like our Google ad campaigns and stuff. And he was like, you can't throw any more money at it. It doesn't work like that. There's just so much coming to it. You're getting the lion's share, and then after that, it's like, where do you go then?
It's trying to get the conversions. That's what we've found is like, well, that's what, when not having an estimator, it's like, I can only go and see so much. And it's like, how do we get the percentage of those people up? Because I don't have any more hours, you know? Maybe when we've got somebody doing it all the time, can just be throw a bit more. It's quite
good. Like, so the estimators that we've got, so like, we work off of like what's just called a labour only target. So like, to us, like scaffolding, skips, materials, there is a wee bit of markup on them, but they're not really important to us. So we almost like take that out to the side and we're like, what's the actual labour only target that we go out of the job? And that's what we judge the guys on every week, because they could go and like sell a job that's like on Edinburgh Castle, but it's changing one slate. So like, it'll take like thousands of pounds of scaffold. It'll take like loads of like do you know what I mean? It's like, it seems like a really big job, but our guys will go out and do it in one day. So to us, it's only like 1 day's labour basically. But like, we've kind of got like, so we've seen Craig's stats over like probably 18 months or something now, if we've been tracking, and he gets about 18 grand labour only a week. And Stuart has just came in the door and been doing it. Probably he's been at it about 6 months, but he's probably only had about 3 proper months. He's about 10 now. So like, now we're seeing like, introduce the packs, see if it goes up, like you get the averages up. So that's probably about 20. That's 28 on average, and that's like there or thereabouts. What it kind of, that reflects back to like, that's what we need it to be on our, like, to keep our guys, like, if they get through that 28 as well, that makes us profitable.
Right.
But it's kind of moving up a wee bit now, and like that's why we're trying to get the third surveyor in and push all these numbers up a bit. So that's kind of how we've done it. Could probably
growing.
show you that in more detail if you actually ever wanted to come through and see it or whatever.
Aye,
but
that'd
we've
be
almost
good.
got like a per man per day figure that we work it all back, and then we're like, right, that's if we can get the jobs in at this, and them guys are all in the right places at the right times, which is hard, COVID and Monday clubs and absences and whatever. But I'm saying Monday clubs, like we've probably not actually really got that, to be honest, but it's just that's quite unknown hang into it. So and then we work it back, and then it basically just gives you like something to know that like that's what you need. And we didn't always hit our targets, but like at least you know like, oh, we were that over, we did hit it or whatever.
Yeah, you got something to work towards.
Aye.
Yeah.
And then everybody in the company can visually see like if we won or if we didn't win. We always do like if we hit target on the Friday, the Monday morning they get like bacon. Well, it's like bacon roll Monday, but they get like bacon rolls or sausage or whatever they want. And somebody goes to the snack van and just brings all the rolls down for the boys. And that's just
every week.
Well, if we hit it, but we've hit it I think we hit it the last 3 weeks. I don't think we'll be hitting it this week because we've got one of the apprentices, he's away to college for 2 weeks. So he'll be off of jobs. One of the guys has got COVID, and I think there's somebody else is on holiday. So that's where we struggle a wee bit. So we sometimes say big bumper weeks when everybody's there, but then it kind of gets to the weeks where it's like we're a bit depleted as a team and it comes down a bit. And that's where like putting in rules for how many people can be off at the one time and all of that becomes difficult. Like that's us, I think 19 or 20 guys on the tools now, and it's like a lot of them all want off at the same times and things, so that can be hard as well.
Yeah. Aye. Well, any stuff like that I'd always be interested to hear, because kind of where we want to be in a couple years, you know.
You're saying that, but then when you get there, you'll be like, oh no, I want to be there. It just evolves.
Yeah.